forget the philosopher now, Nietzsche, that you, when I was there sort of lying on the floor late at night and it was all dark and you could hear the drug addicts going off on one, this sort of sense of who the hell am I? Am I really a nothing? Is this what it's come to? Am I a nothing? And it was that sort of staring into the abyss. Have the abyss stare deeply back into you, that cold dread that maybe I was also going to fall into this abyss. You could hear other people in the other room, have some drugs, Andy. No, 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 no. I can't do.
So what happened next? This is what we want to know. I mean, you're homeless, you're having this prodigal son moment, and physiology and psychology. What was your first real adult career job then out of university, and how did that come about?
Wow. I was a musician as well. So my first attempt at a job was I formed a rock band while I was at university, and I had dreams of being a mega rock star. See, I was dreaming big even from the get. So we formed a band. We used to play at university. We used to play in the bar. We get free drinks. So it wasn't a sort of a lucrative career. It was if you wanted a drink, of course, but then after university, I thought, no, I love this. There's something about writing your music and playing and performing in front of others, and if they appreciate it, there's a buzz about that was addictive. And I thought, wow, yes, let me try and do this. So for about 18 months, we were doing gigs around the country, trying to write more songs, get a deal. Alas, it didn't happen, and the dream slowly died. We were clinging on to it, hoping that one more gig and luck would change, and then boom, as a sudden collapse into like, we got no money. This isn't going to happen. The dream has to die, and this painful realization that dream of mega stardom and influencing the world through your music was just not going to happen. And it probably heralded the most difficult time in my life, but when I look back at it, probably the most formative one. Where I was living in London in a shared accommodation with a bunch of others who were also struggling, we were told when the band decided to call it a day that we had 1 week to get out of this property, and I was absolutely clean out of money. My father, I love him to bits, but he was quite a strong disciplinarian, and the idea of me trying to do this was something that he thought was absolutely ridiculous and stupid, and why would I waste my life on doing something like this, and why don't I get a proper job? And I had a little bit too much pride to go crawling back to Yorkshire on my hands and knees saying, "You're so right, Dad." So I was faced like, what the hell do I do? And it precluded, well, it caused the most difficult phase of my life. I ended up out on the street with my guitar and a black plastic bag of bin liner of some clothes. And I ended up in a squat with sleeping on the floorboards with other people in the squat who were like doing drugs and losing themselves. And there I was with my guitar, my bag of clothes, wondering what the hell just happened.
Sounds like the prodigal son. Went to the far off country, squandered what your father had given you, and here you are with a black plastic bag and a guitar with the drug addicts and homeless.
Exactly. It was, looking back, one of the most incredibly formative periods, because it was a time where I'd wander out into the streets, and if you did meet people, they said, "Well, who are you? Like, what do you do? Where do you come from? Where do you work?" I don't have anything. I don't have a job. I don't have money. And this, like, I have nothing. It felt like the whole world was going on out there, and I was kind of cut off from it, really cut off, like existentially cut off, and didn't know how to connect with the world. I didn't even have money to get even a basic suit to go to an interview. I was just left in the sort of t-shirt and jeans that I had. And I remember there's that sort of expression from I forget the philosopher now, Nietzsche, that when I was there, sort of lying on the floor late at night, and it was all dark, and you could hear the drug addicts going off on one. This sort of sense of who the hell am I? Am I really a nothing? Is this what it's come to? Am I a nothing? And it was that sort of staring into the abyss. Have the abyss stare deeply back into you, that cold dread that maybe I was also going to fall into this abyss. You could hear other people in the other room, have some drugs, Andy. No, I can't do. And it caused me to go through a period of existential kind of fear. I really thought maybe I'm going to lose myself here, that I have nothing to hold on to.
Yep.
It forced me to look really deeply into myself and say, who am I? What have I got about myself that I can hold on to as something that I could reflect on as, okay, I'm reasonably intelligent. I'm physically well. So I had to reconstruct myself to have something to hold on to take me through that period, because I thought I was going to sort of collapse into the abyss. Recognizing the things I need to improve, but things that I could hold on to. So when I faced the world, I had something to hold on to take me through that journey. And it was, when I look back, probably one of the most formative periods of my life, because I see so many people who haven't had to look deeply into themselves and see, who am I? What have I got? Who am I for myself? And then find themselves defining themselves by their job or the things they've got, and which would be fine if things are going well. But if those things disappear, there's a kind of existential collapse, because I don't know who I am. And it's helped me a lot, I think, looking back, going through that process, because people, there are more knocks that you'll have along the way. But if you've been there and you've come through it, you can pretty much come through anything. I'm sure there are things that will knock me over in the future, but it's given me a kind of greater, deeper resilience that I think have been really helpful. Now, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. One of my best friends at the time also went through a very similar process, and he ended up committing suicide. So it's not.
This is not a formula.
It's not a formula, but in the sense of facing the deepest adversity that you can handle and coming through it, there's a kind of fortitude and strength that you get from being sort of forged in that furnace that can be really powerful and helpful for your own psyche as you move forward into life.
So what happened next? This is what we want to know. I mean, you're homeless, you're having this prodigal son moment, and
well, I realized I wasn't going to get out of this situation unless I found some way of getting some money. Because I needed at least a suit to go to an interview. I didn't even have. So it was a moment very difficult for the ego. Like I didn't know what to do, where to turn to. So I ended up walking out onto the streets and basically banging on doors, asking if anyone would hire me for anything. It was that kind of desperate.
Yeah.
And eventually came across people doing some sort of building work, sort of small renovations and things. And they looked very surprised that I was basically asking for work, but they did actually need a laborer. So they said, okay, we'll hire you in, cash in hand, very poor wage. But it was with a bunch of Cockney Builders. Now, for those of you not familiar, Cockneys are a name for people based in London who've got a very sort of working class London accent. You've probably seen them on films, etc. But your accent is really, really important in the UK. There's still, like, people position you, as you've mentioned on many of your podcasts, you can position people down to the sort of nearest 10 or 20 miles from with your accent. So I obviously wasn't from London, and I had immediately, they clocked on that, what do they call me? College boy. Like, wow, we've got college boy here. I bet his wrists are a bit limp. And so I was hired, and I was absolutely taken to task by these Cockney Builders. Like, what the hell have we got with a college boy here? Like, there's no way he's going to be able to do anything. But I thought, no, I'm going to show you. So I got there early. I worked really, really hard, and week by week, oh, this college boy ain't too bad, actually. He's all right, this college boy. And so I did about sort of 8 to 10 weeks there. And the guy who ran the crew, he was sort of in his early 30s, and he wasn't having this. He said, "No, you're a college boy. You're like, I don't believe that you're as good as you think you are, or as hard as you think you are." So he said to me, "I want you, if you're really like you are what everyone's saying you are, I want you to come down the boxing gym and do a couple of rounds with me. I want to see what you're made of, Andy." So I had to go down to a boxing gym and get in the ring with this guy who's about sort of 10 years older and like half as big again as me, and slug it out for a couple of rounds. I got my head kicked in, but I didn't go down, and I thought, I'm going to show you. And by the end of it, he came up and gave me a hug and said, "No, you're all right, Andy. You're all right." So it was a weird experience of baptism of fire that was an amazing experience of me of having sort of experienced prejudice against the college boy, and then having to stand my ground and do what I needed to do to prove that I am worthy of their respect. And in the end, they became good friends. But through that experience, after about 3 months, I'd earned enough money to buy a really cheap suit. And then I was still like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I went to a job center and they said, well, we've got these kind of clerical roles that going that, college boy, you might be able to do one of those. A couple of them didn't really work out, but I ended up at British Telecom, BT. And I got a job there as a clerical assistant, which is basically sort of carrying memos around and doing photocopying. I was sort of like the bottom of the bottom. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to, as much as I did in the building site, I thought, right, I'm going to give it my best. And I worked really, really hard. And 10 years later, I was running one of the divisions in that.
Oh my!